back. The head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, on Thursday presents an overview of the state of the global economy and the ongoing annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF. Despite the growth shoots, Mrs. Lagarde harps on the need for finance ministers and central bank governors to move quickly on reforms that can mitigate emerging risk, of which she says there is no room for complacency.
What we are seeing is a recovery that is stronger, that is much more broadly based than in recent years. And we expect higher global growth this year and next. 3.6% this year, 3.7% next year. So in both cases, 0.1 percentage points higher than our July projection, and certainly much higher than the 3.2 growth that we had in 2016. Now, measured by GDP, nearly 75% of the world is experiencing an upswing. And we are seeing it's the broadest based recovery in the last 10 years. Added to that, it is actually driven by investment, by consumption, and by trade. And it is shared between the emerging market economies, which, as you remember, were providing about 80% of growth in the last few years. It is shared between the emerging market economies, still active, but also with other countries like Europe, like Japan, and the US. So that's a change. What has not changed, though, is that the recovery is not complete. Last year, 47 countries experienced negative growth on a per capita basis, including many small and fragile economies. Far too many people across all types of economies are seeing their aspirations limited by the impact of technologies and the repercussions of excessive income inequality. The result is growing political tensions in many places and increased skepticism about the benefits of globalization. So our suggestion is that it is not time to be complacent. It's time to take those policy decisions that will actually enable more people and more countries to benefit from that recovery that should be made sustainable. And that's the question that we will put to the policymakers, to the finance ministers, and to the governors of central bank who will be attending the meetings as of today. So what can be this season of action? My global policy agenda, which you have received a copy of, is where we outline the steps that we recommend. Policymakers can use this moment to provide more certainty and provide for the future risks. The first priority, as we see it, is to actually secure that recovery. And that includes monetary policy that continues to support the recovery while also recognizing risks created by easy financial conditions. And that's a subtle balancing act which will be determined by the situation of the country based on the independence of the banks and their mandate. On the fiscal front, countries with healthier finances should invest more in their own economies through infrastructure spending, strengthening safety nets, investing in education, and allowing women to access the labor market. Other countries should use this moment of better and stronger recovery to reduce public debt relative to GDP. Now, this is not it. You remember the three-pronged approach that we recommended? We are still using this reference to the three-pronged approach: monetary, fiscal, structural reforms. And many of those structural reforms will actually come easier and more efficient because there is recovery underway. Our research has demonstrated that. Now, structural reforms will vary depending on what country we are talking about. And they will include reform of the labor market, reform of access to the service market, removing the rents that sometimes cripple those markets, removing barriers. It will include investing in research and development in order to improve the productivity that has been lagging behind. shrinking disparities in access to health and education, and promoting lifelong learning. Now, many of those challenges, not all of them, but many of those challenges actually cut across borders. And that is why we need to make progress on a range of issues. And those are the issues that, in our view, have a global nature and require cooperation. Fighting corruption, protecting the progress made on financial regulatory reform, tackling climate change, improving the global trading system, adjusting to the impact of the combined breakthrough technologies that will impact markets, in particular the financial markets. Fostering this kind of cooperation is the way that we can best serve our 189 member countries in order to help them build a more inclusive, more resilient global economy. So we will, in the next few days, encourage the policymakers to consider those issues. We will share with them the results of our research. We will obviously comment on the World Economic Outlook, the Global Financial Stability Report, in order to help them, hopefully, see that in addition to the domestic measures that they are considering, the global aspect and the spillover effects of those measures also should be taken into account.
Head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. Now let's see how the commodities markets are doing and where the metal market, where gold rose for a sixth day today, boosted by a weaker dollar as investors wait for key U.S. inflation data. Spot gold was up 0.2% at $1,296.21 an ounce. The metal is on track to post its first weekly gain in 5 weeks. U.S. gold futures climbed 0.2% to $1,298.60 an ounce. And oil prices are also higher today as both U.S. crude production and inventories declined, pointing towards a tightening market. Traders also attribute the increase to strong Chinese oil import data. Brent is seen at $56.59 per barrel, up 34 cents. U.S. crude trades at $50.94 per barrel in early trade, up 34 cents from their last settlement. Meanwhile, data from the Energy Information Administration released on Thursday shows U.S. crude inventories dropped 2.7 million barrels in the week to October the 6th to 462.22 million barrels. Crude production slipped by 81,000 barrels per day to 9.48 million barrels per day. And that's our show today. Thank you for watching. I am Bisi Adebayo.